Cadillac wants to be the best premium brand the US has to offer and leapfrog the competition with their brand new engine configuration, V16, with rumors of both Marmon and Peerless making V16s. Cadillac wanted to be the first. In 1927, Cadillac would steal Owen Nacker from Marmon to build a V16, but they were very adamant on beating the competition to market, which Cadillac would. Marmon V16 wouldn't come out until 1931 and was more powerful, producing 200 horsepower versus 185 to the Cadillac V16. But the general consensus is the Cadillac V16 is the better of the two engines. Oh yeah, and remember Peerless? They only built 3 prototypes and then they went bankrupt. Lawrence Fisher, who was Cadillac's general manager, leaked to the press that the company would offer a V12, hoping to keep the V16 a secret. Cadillac would build 2 very different V16s. The first one was essentially 2 overhead valve Buick straight 8 engines bolted together, sharing a crank. While researching this episode, you will find that sources vary. Some sources say that it was 2 overhead valve Buick engines. Another source would say that they built 2 V8s and casted them together. The only issue with the V8 story is, up until this point, they haven't done overhead valve on a V8. Cadillac hasn't. Chevy did in 1916 and 1918, but that engine was very problematic. But each bank of cylinders operated independent of each other. In other words, there was 2 intakes for both sides, 2 exhausts for both sides, 2 carburetors for both sides. Cadillac would offer the V16 in 2 generations. First generation ran from 1930 to 1937. Second generation picked up in 38 to 40. Let's start with the first generation engine. This engine was well engineered and featured overhead valve, counterweighted crankshaft, hydraulic tappets, sort of, 2 single downdraft carburetors, 1 on each side, also has intake and exhaust on both sides as well. This engine was also known as the Series 452. Valve train noise was always a concern. Cadillac would develop the industry first hydraulic lash adjuster, which quieted the valves down and took up the space of the lash. Technically not hydraulic tappets, but one could call them that. Cadillac's V16 was so smooth that one could put a dime on its edge on the valve cover while the engine was running and it would stay on its edge. That's how smooth this V16 was. Contrary to popular belief, more cylinders did not equal more power. More cylinders equaled more smoothness because they would cancel each other out. This engine was dead smooth. So let's talk specs. 452 cubic inch displacement overhead valve, V16, 7.4 liters. It's good for anywhere between 165 to 185 horsepower at 3,400 RPM. 320 pound-feet of torque at 1,400 RPM with a bore of 3 inches and a stroke of 4 inches. Compression 536 to 1. This engine weighs about 1,300 pounds. The block, aluminum alloy crankcase. All the plumbing and wires are concealed. 5 main bearings. This engine was used from 1930 to 1937. It was available in cars, all of the Halo cars, like the high-end Series 370A through E, 1936 to 1937, Series 80 through 85, Fleetwood-bodied cars. Theoretical top speed with this engine was 100 miles per hour. 0 to 60, there wasn't a 0 to 60, but they had a 10 to 60, 22 seconds. By 1937, sales were down to a trickle. It was expected that Cadillac was going to discontinue the V16, but to everybody's shock and surprise, they made a totally new engine for 1938. The new design was 6 inches shorter in length, front to back, and 250 pounds lighter than the outgoing 452 V16 version, 13 inches shorter, and produced the same amount of power. The second gen Cadillac V16 vastly different than the outgoing overhead valve V16. For starters, the overhead valve was completely gone for a flathead design, and this one was very radical in design. 135-degree V16. It almost looks like a flathead V16. It almost looks as flat as a pancake. The second generation V16 was also known as the Series 90. This engine was one of the last new engines made before World War II. It featured 9 main bearings to provide crankshaft support, which essentially places a main bearing between each opposing pair of cylinders, square bore and stroke. Lower piston speed, which promoted crankshaft rigidity. This engine would rev anywhere between 34 and 3,700. It used hydraulic lifters, which were quiet and didn't require periodic valve adjustment. Let's talk specs. 431 cubic inch displacement flathead V16 7.1 liters. It's good for 185 horsepower, 3,700 RPM, 320 pound-feet of torque at 1,400 RPM with a bore of 325 inches and a stroke of 3.25 inches. Compression 7-to-1. Features 9 main bearings. Absolute legend. Years that this engine was used, 1938 to 1940. Theoretical top speed, 100 miles per hour. 0 to 60, once again, they didn't have 0 to 60, but 10 to 60 was 16 seconds. There was only 508 of these sold. Engine weight was 1,000 pounds, or around about that figure. It said it was 250 pounds less than the outgoing V16, which was 1,300 pounds. Cadillac made the new engine cheaper to produce by leaving a lot of the plumbing and wiring exposed for easy access. Also, the second generation version sits down low inside the engine bay. The 431 wasn't Cadillac's last V16. Cadillac made a V16 back in 2003 for the Cadillac V16 concept car, which sported a 13.6 liter, 1,000 horsepower, 1,000 pound-feet of torque monster that never saw production. Cadillac would discontinue the V16 because of sales, and it's believed that Cadillac lost money on every single V16 ever built. Also, the competition shifted. Marmon, Peerless, Pierce Arrow, Franklin, Cord, Duesenberg, Auburn were all gone. The only competition left was Packard, Lincoln, Chrysler Imperial. Stateside, you still had Jaguar, Rolls-Royce, Bentley across the pond. All right, now it's time for Would You Rather. 2 scenarios today. Would you rather have a 1930 Cadillac V16 or a 1932 Cadillac V16 or a 1934 Cadillac V16? I'm going to leave this here for a minute. If you need more time, feel free, pause the video. Moving on to the second scenario, would you rather have a 1938 Cadillac V16 or a 1939 Cadillac V16 or a 1940 Cadillac V16? I'm going to leave this here for a minute. If you need more time, feel free, pause the video. Also, what is your favorite Cadillac V16? What body styles do you like the most? In the comment section below. Now it's time for Name That Tune. First person to get both the name of the band and song title correctly in the comment section will have their comment pinned to the top of it. Thank you all so much for coming out and watching this. If you'd like to get in touch with me, shoot me a comment in the comment section below or check out our Facebook group that correlates with this YouTube channel. If you don't have Facebook and would still like to reach me, send me an email. All of it will be linked in the description below. Just know I appreciate all of the support. And until next time, here's some scenes for our next episode. Really rare 1957 Dodge swept side truck. That's what's next on What It's Like. Tune in tomorrow to catch that episode, hopefully at 4:30 Pennsylvania time. I apologize, the episodes haven't been coming out at 4:30. Summer's been really crazy. But yeah, tune in tomorrow at 4:30 Pennsylvania time to catch that episode. Until then, toodaloo! I'm your ice cream man. Stop me when I'm passing by. Oh my, I'm your ice cream man. Stop me when I'm passing by. And all my flavors are guaranteed to satisfy.